Welcome to Baby Doves. I'd like to do a segment on worship. This is Christian worship. And at its heart, worship is recognizing and appreciating, celebrating the worth of God. It's all about, who God is, what He's done, what He's doing. It's not confined to specific rituals or specific gathering. It's a mindset and a lifestyle. It can also be, sort of ritualistic and done communally. It's wonderful done communally. But it does not have to be. Ultimately, every action, right, every moment of our lives can be transformed into a worshipful practice. So first on the list here, I would like to sort of go over where this ends up, and then we'll go back and see how we get there. Where it ends up is sort of a sense that you've abandoned yourself, kind of emptied. I hear people talking about pouring themselves out, opening themselves up, and allowing oneself to be infused with the presence of God. God's everywhere, like everywhere. According to the doctrine of immanence, means that God fully occupies every moment of time and every interstice of space, and so that includes oneself. And so it's not hard to visualize that God has infused one's own being entirely. It's a practice. It's a spiritual practice. There's some things associated with this, quieting oneself, being distant from one's sin, through prayer, through repentance and forgiveness. It can also help if you're among fellow believers who are in a sort of same mindset. Often it's musical. There's musical accompaniment. But it's a deep sense of the presence of God, proximate to one's person, but also, in one's person, in one's spirit. This can be an intellectual exercise, an intellectual practice. It can involve the body, but ultimately it involves the spirit. It involves the soul. Okay, so sort of primary to this, or a precedent to this, is that we trust God, right? That we are able to open ourselves to that kind of infusion, that kind of intimacy with God, that spiritual intimacy, and that requires trust. And the way I gain trust doing that is through reading the scriptures, and also listening to other people, and also through prayer. Right? Worship is kind of a form of prayer, a very intense, intimate form of prayer. There's kind of some people will talk a lot about, well, I'm going to go to God in prayer and ask for something. I'm going to go to God in prayer and confess something. I'm going to go to God in prayer and, well, in worship you just go to God in prayer and tell Him you love Him, right? Tell Him that you want Him to be in control. And so that's a form of prayer. Okay, and then I just have a couple of others here, a couple of other points I want to make. And one is that, worship is a proclamation, not only to God that you are wanting Him to occupy your spirit, but also a proclamation to yourself that, this is what I want for me. I'm, reminding myself that's who I am, that's what I want. And that's a complicated, not because it's difficult, it's just as many faceted. Right? There are so many parts of oneself that kind of slip around. It's just sort of, massive opening of everything. That can be challenging, but it can be learned through steps. And then it's also a proclamation to others. right? It's a proclamation to the other people if you're worshiping communally. But then it's a proclamation in the sense that worship is a lifestyle. So it's not just when I'm in these specific ritualistic environments, at church, say, or at Bible study, say, where people are worshiping together in a group. But it's also, when I'm at work, when I'm driving in traffic, when I'm in the supermarket. It's quite possible to be in a worshipful state where you're open to God and open to being intimate with God spiritually. And so that can be a proclamation to the people around you. And yeah, there's more to this. I don't want to get too much into this right now, but just because of the doctrine of immanence, for me, the doctrine of immanence is very meaningful to me. It's because God is everywhere. He's in every moment of time and every interstice of space. And so when you're in the supermarket picking up potatoes, God is in all of that. And He's in the progression of events that got you into the supermarket. He's in the moment where you're reaching for the potatoes. He's in the potatoes. He's in you. He's in the air between you and the potatoes. He's in, right? And so that worshipful proclamation is possible. I mean, it's a worshipful situation. That's the way the world is. And the clock agrees.